Jiwon Kim walked through the long hallway of the Galactic Council station. Her black boots made soft sounds on the metal floor. She carried a small datapad in her hands. Today would change everything. The station was huge. It floated in space around Nexus Prime, a blue planet that served as the center of galactic government. Aliens of many different species moved through the corridors. Some looked like giant insects. Others were tall and thin with purple skin. A few glowed with their own light. Jiwon had been Earth's ambassador for 5 years. She had seen how the other species treated humans. They spoke to her like she was a child. They made rules that hurt human colonies. They acted like humans were too young and stupid to matter. She reached the main council chamber. The room was enormous, with seats arranged in circles going up toward the ceiling. Each species had their own section. The human section was small and placed far from the center. That was another insult. Taehyung Lee sat in the observation area above the main floor. He was Earth's Minister of Interstellar Affairs. He had flown here from Earth just for this moment. His face was calm, but his hands were tight on the railing. "The session will now begin," announced the council speaker. It was a Valthek, a species that looked like a cross between a lizard and a bird. Its voice came through translation devices that all the species used. Jiwon stood up in the human section. "I request permission to address the full council." The speaker looked annoyed. "Human representative, you are not scheduled to speak today. Please sit down." "This cannot wait," Jiwon said. Her voice was steady and strong. "What I have to say affects every species in this chamber." Murmurs filled the room. The other ambassadors looked curious. Humans usually followed the rules perfectly. They rarely caused trouble. The speaker's feathers ruffled with irritation. "Very well. You have 5 minutes." Jiwon walked to the center of the chamber. She looked up at all the alien faces staring down at her. Some looked bored. Others seemed amused. They had no idea what was coming. "Members of the Galactic Council," she began. "For 37 years, humanity has been a member of this organization. We have followed your laws. We have paid our taxes. We have provided soldiers for your wars. We have been good citizens of the galaxy." She paused and looked around the room. "But you have never treated us as equals." The Zephyrian ambassador made a sound like wind chimes. "Young species must earn their place." "This is the way it has always been." "Earn our place?" Jiwon's voice got louder. "We discovered faster-than-light travel on our own. We built colonies on 23 worlds. We developed new medical treatments that saved millions of lives across dozens of species. What more must we do to earn basic respect?" The Corvin representative stood up. He was tall and blue with 4 arms. "Humans are emotional and unpredictable. The council must maintain order." "Order," Jiwon repeated. "Is that what you call it when you vote to relocate our colonies?" "When you deny us access to the same technologies you freely share with species that joined the council centuries after us. When you place trade restrictions on human goods but not on identical products from other worlds." The chamber was getting louder. Aliens were talking to each other in their own languages. The translation system struggled to keep up. "Yesterday," Jiwon continued, "this council voted to force humans to abandon the Kepler system. You want to give our homes to the Thexian Empire because they have been members longer than us. You are throwing families out of their homes to make room for a species that already controls 40 star systems." She held up her datapad. "I have here the official response from the Human Federation." The speaker leaned forward. "The council's decision is final. There is no appeal process." "You are correct," Jiwon said. "There is no appeal. So we have made a different choice." She touched her datapad. Her voice carried to every corner of the massive chamber. "Effective immediately, the Human Federation withdraws from all Galactic Council treaties. We are ending all trade agreements. We are recalling all human ambassadors and staff. We are canceling all mutual defense pacts. Humanity is leaving the Galactic Council." The chamber exploded into chaos. Aliens were shouting, clicking, buzzing, and making sounds that had no human equivalent. The speaker banged his gavel repeatedly, but no one was listening. "This is impossible," screamed the Valthek ambassador. "You cannot simply leave." "Watch us," Jiwon said. Above in the observation area, Taehyung Lee spoke quietly into his communicator. "Execute Protocol 7. All human personnel are to evacuate council space within 72 hours. In orbit around the station, Captain Minho Park received the message on his ship. The new soul. He had been waiting for this moment. His crew was already prepared. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's speakers. "We are beginning immediate evacuation of all human citizens from Council territory." This is not a drill. Back in the chamber, the aliens were still shouting. The Thexian ambassador, a creature that looked like a walking tree, was demanding that the Council arrest Jiwan for treason. "Treason against what?" Jiwan asked. "We are withdrawing from your organization. We are not breaking any laws. We are simply choosing to govern ourselves." The speaker finally managed to restore some order. "You are making a terrible mistake. Humans cannot survive in the galaxy alone. You need our protection. You need our trade networks. You need our technology." Jiwan smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. "We have survived ice ages, world wars, and plagues. We have built cities on dead worlds and made them green again. We have turned deserts into gardens and tamed rivers that seemed impossible to cross. We do not need your protection." She walked toward the exit. "We came to the stars to find friends and partners. Instead, we found masters who wanted servants. We choose freedom. You will be back," called the Corvan ambassador. "When your colonies start failing, when your people start dying, you will come crawling back to us." Jiwan stopped at the chamber door. She turned around one last time. "If we ever return to this chamber," she said, "it will not be as supplicants begging for scraps from your table. It will be as equals, or not at all." She walked out, leaving behind 37 years of human membership in the Galactic Council. Throughout Council space, human ships were already moving. Transport vessels picked up human citizens from alien worlds. Military escorts protected the evacuation convoys. Diplomatic staff destroyed sensitive documents and prepared to leave embassies that had represented Earth for decades. The Galactic Council had expected many things from humanity over the years. They had expected humans to follow orders, to accept limitations, to know their place in the galactic hierarchy. They had never expected humans to simply walk away. Within 3 days, every human had left Council space. The galaxy was suddenly quiet without human voices. Trade networks that had relied on human goods found themselves with empty cargo holds. Research stations that had benefited from human creativity suddenly seemed less innovative. But most of the alien species celebrated. The troublesome humans were gone. Order had been restored. The galaxy could return to the way things had always been. They had no idea that humanity's real journey was just beginning. 3 years had passed since the humans left. The Galactic Council had thrown a celebration that lasted for weeks. Finally, the galaxy was peaceful again. No more human complaints about unfair treatment. No more human demands for better technology. No more human questions about why some species got special privileges. Dr. Yoonji Choi worked late in her office on the Valthek intelligence station. She was one of the few aliens who had actually liked working with humans. They asked good questions and came up with creative solutions to problems. Most of her colleagues thought she was strange for missing them. She stared at her computer screen, looking at reports from across the galaxy. Something was wrong, but she could not figure out what it was. "Computer, show me all communications from former human colonies in the last 6 months," she said. The screen displayed a simple message. No communications found. That was impossible. The human colonies had been home to millions of people. Even if they were struggling, they should be sending distress signals. They should be asking for help. They should be begging to rejoin the Council. "Computer, show me trade requests from human space." No trade request found. "Show me any signals at all from human territory." No signals detected. Yoonji sat back in her chair. This made no sense. When the humans left, everyone expected their colonies to fail within months. Humans were too young as a species. They did not have the experience to survive without Council support. They needed alien technology to keep their worlds running. But the silence was not the silence of death. It was the silence of someone who had closed the door and did not want to be disturbed. On the hidden human base called Kepler Station, Admiral Hyunwoo Kang looked out through a massive window at the construction yards below. Hundreds of ships were being built, but they looked nothing like the vessels humans had used before. These new ships were sleek and smooth. They seemed to bend light around their hulls. Some of them appeared to be there one moment and gone the next, as if they were stepping in and out of reality itself. "Status report," Hyunwoo said to his aide. "All colonies are operating at 110% efficiency, sir," the young officer replied. "Food production is up 40% since we started using the new farming techniques. Population growth is stable. Morale is excellent, Yunwu nodded. The humans had not just survived without the council. They had thrived. When you remove the bureaucracy and restrictions that the council imposed, human creativity exploded like a star-going nova. What about the research projects? Dr. Sunho Kim reports that the new drive systems are ready for testing. Dr. Yeji Lim says the communication experiments have been successful. And Counselor Baekhyun Nam wants to see you about the intelligence reports. Hyunwoo walked through the station's corridors. Humans were working alongside beings that the council had never even acknowledged as intelligent. Small crystalline creatures helped with computer calculations. Large, gentle beings that looked like living rocks assisted with construction. Flying creatures that seemed to be made of pure energy worked on power systems. It turned out that the galaxy was full of intelligent life. The council had simply never bothered to look for it, or had dismissed it as unimportant because it did not fit their narrow definition of civilization. Counselor Baekhyun Nam was waiting in the intelligence center. The room was filled with screens showing star maps and data streams from across the galaxy. Hyunwoo, we need to talk, Baekhyun said. The council is getting nervous. Good, Hyunwoo replied. What are they seeing? Trade disruptions mainly. Ships are disappearing near our old borders. Mining operations are reporting equipment failures. 3 separate species have sent scouts to try to find our colonies, but the scouts never came back. Hyunwoo smiled. Captain Dayun Song and her reconnaissance teams are very good at their jobs. Captain Dayun Song was currently floating in space near a Thexian mining station. Her ship was completely invisible to their sensors. The new stealth technology that human scientists had developed made their vessels undetectable to any known scanning system. She watched as the Thexian workers struggled with their mining equipment. The machines kept breaking down at exactly the wrong moments. What the Thexians did not know was that tiny human drones were causing the breakdowns. The drones were so small that they looked like space dust, but they could disable any piece of technology. Base Command, this is Shadow 7. Da-Hyun spoke quietly into her communicator. The Thexians are getting frustrated. They are requesting Council technical support. Understood, Shadow 7. Continue monitoring and return to base in 6 hours. Da-Hyun had been conducting these missions for 2 years. Her job was to watch the alien species and learn everything about their technology and military capabilities. The Council thought humans had vanished, but humans were actually everywhere, watching and learning. Back on the Council station, the various species were holding emergency meetings. The Valtech ambassador was speaking to a room full of worried-looking aliens. The human colonies should have failed by now, he said. They should be begging us to take them back. Instead, we hear nothing. It is as if they have simply disappeared. The Zephyrian representative pulsed with nervous energy. Maybe they are all dead. Maybe they destroyed themselves. Then where are the bodies? Asked the Corvin ambassador. Where are the wreckage fields? Where are the distress beacons? Dead civilizations leave traces. The humans have left nothing. Dr. Yoonji Choi stood up. As an intelligence analyst, she was allowed to speak at these meetings. I believe the humans are still alive, she said. But they are hiding from us deliberately. The room erupted in angry sounds. The idea that humans could hide from the mighty Galactic Council was insulting. Impossible, shouted the Thexian representative. We have the most advanced sensors in the galaxy. If the humans were alive, we would detect them. Would we? Yoonji asked. Humans always surprised us with their creativity. What if they found ways to avoid our sensors? What if they developed new technologies that we do not understand? The Valtech ambassador's feathers ruffled with annoyance. You give these primitives too much credit. They were barely capable of spaceflight when we found them. They cannot have advanced beyond our level in just 3 years. But privately, many of the aliens were beginning to worry. The humans had always been unpredictable. They solved problems in ways that made no sense to other species. They took technologies that had been perfected over centuries and somehow made them better in just a few years. On Earth, President Junho Yoon sat in his office reading reports from all the human colonies. Every world was not just surviving but growing stronger. The Mars colonies had developed new terraforming techniques that were turning the red planet green. The asteroid mining stations were producing more resources than ever before. The research stations had made breakthrough discoveries in physics, biology, and engineering. Mr. President, his secretary said through the intercom, you have a call from Admiral Kang. Put him through. Hyunwoo's face appeared on the screen. Mr. President, our reconnaissance teams report that the Council is getting very nervous. They are starting to send search parties toward our space. Are we ready? Chunyo asked. We are more than ready, sir. The question is whether we want to reveal ourselves yet. Junho thought for a moment. Not yet. Let them worry a little longer. Fear will make them more willing to listen when we finally do make contact. Understood, sir. Oh, and Mr. President, you should see what Dr. Yeji Lim discovered on the archaeological expedition. She found something that changes everything we thought we knew about human history. The transmission ended, leaving Junho alone with his thoughts. The galaxy had thrown humanity away like garbage. But garbage could be recycled into something much more valuable than the original material. Soon, the galaxy would discover what humans had become during their years of silence. And it would be nothing like what anyone expected. The first sign that something had changed came when a human ship appeared in the middle of Nexus Prime's orbital space, without any warning. The Council's defense systems had not detected it approaching. Their sensors had not seen it coming through any known hyperspace routes. One moment the space around the station was empty, and the next moment a sleek vessel hung there like it had always been there. The ship was unlike anything the aliens had ever seen. It was smooth and organic looking, as if it had been grown rather than built. Its hull seemed to shift and change color depending on the angle of view. Sometimes it looked solid, and sometimes it appeared almost transparent. "Attention, Galactic Council Station," came a voice over the communication channels. "This is Captain Dahyun's song of the human vessel Horizon Walker. I am requesting permission to dock." In the Council's command center, alarms were ringing. The Valthek officer in charge was staring at his screens in confusion. "Sir, our sensors still show no ship in that location," his aide reported. "But we can see it with our eyes." "Yes, sir. Visual confirms a vessel is there, but all our detection equipment says the space is empty." The officer opened a communication channel. "Human vessel, you have violated Council space without permission. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Captain Dahyun's voice came back calm and confident. "I am here as an official representative of the Human Federation. I have important information for the Council. You may attack me if you wish, but I think you will find it unsuccessful." The command officer was angry now. "All defense platforms target the human ship and fire warning shots." Energy beams lanced out from the station's weapons. They should have struck the human vessel directly. Instead, they passed right through it as if it was not there at all. "Interesting," Dahyun said. "Your weapons seem to be malfunctioning. Perhaps you should have them checked." In the engine room of the Horizon Walker, Chief Engineer Sunho Kim monitored the quantum phase generators. The ship was shifting in and out of normal space-time, existing in several dimensions at once. It could be seen but not touched, heard but not detected. "Captain," Sunho said over the intercom, "the Council's weapons are using standard particle beam technology. They cannot harm us while we are phase-shifted." "Thank you, Sunho. How are our new passengers doing?" "They are amazed, Captain. I think they have never seen anything like our technology." The passengers Sunho referred to were not human. They were representatives of 3 species that had never been contacted by the Council. Dr. Yeji Lim had discovered them during her exploration. Missions Dr. Yeji Lim stood in the ship's observation lounge with her guests. One was a being of living crystal that communicated through light patterns. Another looked like a small dragon made of starlight. The third was a massive creature that resembled a tree, but one that could move and think. "How is this possible?" the crystal being asked in its musical voice. "Your species was considered primitive by the Council, yet you have technology that seems like magic," Yeji smiled. "When you are not told something is impossible, you sometimes discover that it is actually quite easy." The Council's rules limited their imagination. We had no rules, so our imagination was free. She gestured toward the viewing window. "Look at this ship. It is not just made of metal and circuits. It is alive in a way. We learned to grow our technology instead of just building it. We learned to work with the universe instead of fighting against it." The dragon-like being pulsed with curiosity. "The Council told us we were not intelligent enough to join them. They said we were just animals." "The Council has a very narrow view of intelligence," Yeji replied. "They think intelligence must look like theirs. But you understand mathematics in ways they never could. You see patterns in space and time that they miss completely. You are not less intelligent. You are differently intelligent." On the council station, emergency meetings were being held in every department. The human ship's arrival had shaken everyone's confidence. If humans could build ships that their best technology could not detect or damage, what else had they accomplished? Dr. Yoonji Choi sat in the intelligence briefing room, looking at the data from the encounter. She had been studying humans for years and she thought she understood them. But this was beyond anything she had imagined. The ship appears to be using some form of quantum tunneling technology, she reported to the assembled officers. It exists in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. Our weapons cannot target something that is not entirely in our reality. The Valthek commander leaned forward. How long would it take to develop countermeasures? Sir, I am not sure we can develop countermeasures. This technology is based on principles we do not understand. It would be like trying to build a spaceship when you still think the world is flat. In another part of the station, Captain Da-hyun Song was walking through the corridors accompanied by 2 council guards. She had agreed to meet with the council leadership, but she had insisted on bringing her own security. Her security consisted of 2 beings that the guards had never seen before. One looked like a floating jellyfish made of pure energy. The other appeared to be a walking suit of armor with no one inside it. What are those things? One of the guards whispered to his partner. I do not know, came the reply. The sensors say they are not there, they were not wrong. The human allies existed in forms that council technology could not properly detect. The energy being was a creature from the space between stars. The armor was inhabited by a collective intelligence made of billions of tiny organisms. Da-hyun entered the council chamber and looked up at the assembled representatives. Many of the seats were empty. Some species had stopped attending council meetings regularly as trade problems mounted and confidence in council leadership declined. Honored representatives, Da-hyun began, I bring greetings from the Human Federation and an offer of friendship to any who are interested. The Valthek speaker's voice was cold. You have violated our space and demonstrated hostile capabilities. We are not interested in your friendship. Hostile? Da-hyun seemed genuinely confused. I defended myself when you attacked me, but I have harmed no one. How is that hostile? Your mere presence here is a threat to galactic security. Da-hyun nodded slowly. I see. So when you have superior technology, it is natural leadership. When we have superior technology, it is a threat. How interesting. She touched a device on her wrist. Perhaps you would like to see what we have been doing during our time away from the council. The chamber's main screen activated, showing images from human space. The aliens gasped as they saw what humanity had accomplished. Cities that floated in the clouds of gas giant planets, forests growing on worlds that had been barren rocks, space stations that looked like living organisms, ships that moved like schools of fish through dimensional spaces that should not exist. We did not spend our time in exile plotting revenge, Da-hyun continued. We spent it learning and growing. We made friends with species you never noticed. We solved problems you thought were unsolvable. We became what we were meant to be. The images continued. Humans working alongside crystalline beings to build computers that thought in colors. Humans cooperating with energy creatures to develop power sources that drew energy from the vacuum of space itself. Humans partnering with collective organisms to create ships that could repair and improve themselves. This is impossible, whispered the Zephyrian representative. How did you advance so far so quickly? Simple, Da-hyun replied. We stopped limiting ourselves to your definitions of what was possible. Every time you told us something could not be done, we asked ourselves why not. Usually we discovered that the only thing making it impossible was the belief that it was impossible. She gestured to her unusual companions. These beings have been trying to contact the council for centuries. You dismissed them as unintelligent because they do not think like you do. We listened to them instead of dismissing them. They taught us things about the universe that your science never discovered. The chamber was silent except for the soft humming of the translation devices. What do you want from us? Asked the Corvin ambassador. Da-hyun smiled. Nothing. We want nothing from you. We are here to offer you something. The galaxy is vast and full of wonders you have never imagined. We invite any species that is interested to join us in exploring it. And if we refuse? Asked the speaker. Then you refuse. We will not force anyone to change, but we will not let you force us to stay the same either. As Da-hyun left the chamber, the aliens sat in stunned silence. The humans had not just survived their exile. They had used it to transform themselves into something beyond the council's comprehension. The balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and many of the species were beginning to wonder if they were on the right side of that shift. The first species to officially break with the Council was the Corvan Republic. Their ambassador, Jilon Vorthak, walked into the human embassy on the neutral planet of Freeport with a simple request. "We want to join your alliance," he said to Ambassador Cheyong Seo. Cheyong looked up from her desk. The human embassy was unlike any diplomatic building the galaxy had ever seen. The walls seemed to be made of living wood, and small creatures that looked like flying flowers carried messages between rooms. The building itself was grown rather than built, using technology that humans had learned from their new allies. "We do not have an alliance in the way you understand it," Cheyong replied. "We have a confederation of free worlds. Each member governs themselves as they choose. But surely there are requirements, rules we must follow, technologies we must share?" Cheyong smiled. "Only one requirement. You must respect the freedom of other members to live as they choose. That is all." Jilon was confused. In the Council, membership came with hundreds of rules and restrictions. Members had to follow Council law, use Council technology standards, and contribute resources to Council projects whether they wanted to or not. What about military service? What about tribute payments? "We have no mandatory military service. Members contribute to mutual defense only if they choose to and only in ways that match their abilities." "As for tribute," Cheyong laughed, "we do not want tribute. We want partners." Within a week, the Corvan Republic had signed agreements with the Human Federation. Instead of the thousands of pages of legal documents that Council treaties required, the agreement was 3 pages long and written in simple language that any species could understand. The results were immediate. Corvan researchers gained access to human medical technology that could extend their lifespans by centuries. Human scientists learned Corvan techniques for faster-than-light communication. Both species benefited, and neither had to give up their independence. The Council was furious. The Valthek speaker called an emergency session to discuss what they called the human problem. "The Corvans have betrayed the Galactic Order," he announced to the assembled representatives. "They must be punished as an example to others." But even as he spoke, more species were sending secret messages to human representatives. The Stellari nomads, who had been ignored by the Council for generations, offered to serve as guides to unexplored regions of space. The Melodic Collective, a species that communicated through music, wanted to learn human techniques for building living ships. Fleet Admiral Seokjin Oh received an urgent message at the human naval base on Kepler Station. The Council was preparing to send warships to blockade Corvan space and force them to return to Council control. "All fleet commanders, this is Admiral Oh," he broadcast to the human naval forces. "The Council is about to attack our new allies. We will not allow this." The human response was swift and overwhelming. Council ships moving toward Corvan space suddenly found themselves surrounded by vessels that appeared out of nowhere. The human ships did not attack, but they made their message clear. Captain Minjae Park was commanding one of the Council cruisers when human ships materialized around his formation. The human vessels were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They moved like living creatures, flowing through space in patterns that seemed impossible. "Council ships, this is Captain Yuna Lee of the human vessel Star Dancer," came a voice over the communication channels. "You are approaching the territory of our allies with hostile intent. Turn back now." Captain Park tried to respond, but his weapon systems would not activate. His engines were running, but the ship was not moving. Somehow the human vessels had disabled his entire fleet without firing a single shot. "How are you doing this?" he demanded. "Your technology is based on controlling the universe," Captain Yuna replied. "Our technology is based on cooperating with it. The universe prefers cooperation." Back on Kepler Station, Dr. Jungkook Han was examining the most important discovery in human history. Deep in an asteroid field, human archaeologists had found ruins that were older than any known civilization. The ruins were clearly built by an advanced species, but they were not like anything the Council races had ever constructed. The architecture seemed to flow like water frozen in time. The technology was so advanced that it looked like art. "Admiral, you need to see this," Jungkook said to Hyunwoo Kang as they walked through the ancient corridors. They stopped in front of a massive door covered in symbols. As they approached, the symbols began to glow with soft light. "The door is scanning us," Jungkook explained, "but not for species identification. It is looking for something else." What? DNA patterns. Specifically, human DNA patterns. The door opened with a sound like singing. Inside was a chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with energy. In the center was a holographic display that activated when they entered. The hologram showed the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago. Instead of the current species, the stars were inhabited by beings that looked remarkably similar to humans. The display showed these ancient humans building incredible technologies and exploring dimensions beyond normal space. "We are not the first humans in the galaxy," Jungkook whispered. "We are the descendants of an ancient human civilization that ruled the stars long before any of the current species existed." The hologram continued, showing how the ancient humans had eventually transcended physical existence and moved to higher dimensions. But they had left behind instructions for their descendants if they could prove themselves worthy by breaking free from the limitations imposed by younger species. "The Council thinks they are the mature civilizations, and we are the children," Hyunwoo said, "but they are wrong. They are the children playing with toys that our ancestors left behind." The discovery changed everything. Humans were not newcomers to the galaxy. They were coming home. News of the archaeological discovery spread quickly through the Human Confederation. For many species that had already joined or were considering joining, it explained why human technology was advancing so rapidly. They were not just inventing new things, they were remembering old knowledge. On the Council Station, panic was spreading. 3 more species had announced their intention to leave the Council and join the Human Confederation. Trade networks that had operated for centuries were collapsing as members switched to the more efficient human systems. Dr. Yoonji Choi sat in her office, preparing her final intelligence report. She had been monitoring the situation since the humans first returned, and her conclusion was unavoidable. "The Galactic Council as we know it is finished," she wrote. "The humans have not just created an alternative to our system, they have created a better alternative. Species are not leaving us to join the humans. They are leaving us to join the future." She paused in her writing and looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, humans and their allies were building something new, something that made the old council system look primitive and restrictive. "The question is not whether the council will survive," she continued typing. "The question is whether we can change enough to deserve a place in what comes next." But change was exactly what the council leadership could not do. They had built their power on the idea that they were the advanced civilizations and everyone else needed their guidance. Admitting that humans had surpassed them would mean admitting that their entire system was wrong. As more species joined the Human Confederation, the galaxy began to transform. Technologies that had seemed impossible became commonplace. Worlds that had been considered uninhabitable bloomed with life. Species that had never been able to communicate suddenly found common ground. The old order was ending and a new age was beginning. But the council leaders still believed they could stop it with force and threats. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The final council session was held in a chamber that was half empty. 31 species had already left to join the Human Confederation. Others had stopped attending meetings altogether. Only the original founding species remained, along with a few allies who were too afraid to change. The Valtech speaker stood before the nearly vacant chamber. His feathers were dull with stress and his voice cracked with exhaustion. "This emergency session will address the collapse of galactic order," he announced to the sparse audience. "The human infection must be stopped before it destroys everything we have built." But even as he spoke, reports were coming in from across the galaxy that made his words seem foolish. The infection he spoke of was bringing prosperity and peace to every system it touched. Director Somi, Jang stood in the control center of the massive construction project orbiting the human world of New Terra. Through the transparent walls, she could see the assembly of the first galactic quantum gate. The device was the size of a small moon and sparkled with technologies from dozens of different species. "Status report," she requested. From her chief engineer, "The Corvin energy specialists have completed the power coupling," came the reply. "The Stellari navigators have programmed the dimensional coordinates. The crystalline computers are running final calculations. We are ready for the first test." The quantum gate was humanity's gift to the galaxy. Instead of the slow hyperspace travel that could take weeks or months to cross between star systems, the gates would allow instantaneous travel across any distance. A ship could enter the gate at one star and emerge at another star on the opposite side of the galaxy in seconds. But the gates were just one example of what the Confederation had accomplished. Human matter converters had ended resource scarcity for any species that wanted them. Human medical technology had made death from aging or disease optional for all member species. Human agricultural techniques had turned barren worlds into garden paradises. On the former Council homeworld of Nexus Prime, Captain Una Lee walked through the streets of the capital city. Half the population had already left to join human space. The remaining inhabitants watched her with mixtures of fear, curiosity, and hope. She stopped at a marketplace where vendors were selling the last of their goods before closing permanently. An elderly Zephyrian approached her, its crystalline body flickering with nervous energy. "Is it true?" the being asked. "Is it true that in human space all species are treated equally?" "It is true," Una replied. "We do not judge intelligence by how similar you are to us. We celebrate the differences that make each species unique. But surely the humans are in charge. Surely they make the rules for everyone else." Una smiled. "No one is in charge of everyone else. Each world governs itself. Each species makes its own choices. We work together because we want to, not because we are forced to." The Zephyrian's light patterns showed deep thought. The Council always told us that someone must be in charge, that without hierarchy there would be chaos. The Council was wrong about many things, Una said gently. Cooperation is more powerful than control. Trust is stronger than fear. Freedom creates more stability than force ever could. In the ancient ruins that Dr. Jungkook Han had discovered, a new revelation was taking place. The holographic systems had been activated by human DNA, but they contained much more than just historical records. Chancellor Woo Young Park stood before the central display with a team of scientists from a dozen different species. The ancient human technology was teaching them things about the universe that no current civilization had ever imagined. The original humans did not just leave this galaxy, Jungkook explained to the assembled group. They left behind a test. They wanted to see if their descendants could grow beyond the limitations that younger species would try to impose. The hologram showed a map of the local galactic cluster, thousands of galaxies spread out like jewels in the darkness, each one containing billions of stars and countless worlds. This is why they built the Quantum Gate Network, Woo Young realized, not just to connect the systems in this galaxy, but to connect this galaxy to others. The ancient humans had explored beyond their home galaxy millions of years ago. They had left behind the tools and knowledge needed for their descendants to follow in their footsteps. But only if those descendants could prove they were ready. The test was never about technology, Jungkook continued. It was about wisdom. Could we learn to work together instead of trying to dominate each other? Could we celebrate diversity instead of fearing it? Could we choose cooperation over conflict? The answer was becoming clear as the Human Confederation grew. Species that had been enemies for centuries were working together on joint projects. Technologies that had been jealously guarded secrets were being shared freely. Worlds that had been scarred by war were being healed by combined efforts. On Earth, President Jun Ho-yoon was preparing for a speech that would be broadcast throughout the galaxy. He stood in his office looking out at the transformed world below. The Earth that humans had left when they first went to the stars had been damaged by pollution and war. The Earth they had returned to was a paradise of green cities and clean oceans. "My fellow sapients," he began as the cameras started recording. "Today marks a new chapter in galactic history. Today we activate the first Quantum Gate Network, connecting every member world of our Confederation in a web of instant communication and travel. The transmission reached every inhabited system in the galaxy, even in council space. Beings gathered around screens to hear what the human leader had to say. To those species that have joined us, we welcome you as equals and partners in the greatest adventure any of us have ever undertaken. Together we will explore new worlds, make new discoveries, and build a future worthy of all our dreams." He paused and looked directly into the camera. "To those species that have chosen to remain with the old system, we respect your choice. Our doors remain open if you ever change your minds. We bear you no ill will and we wish you well." But his next words carried a warning that was gentle but unmistakable. "However, we will not allow the old system to interfere with the new. We will not permit threats or aggression against any member of our Confederation. We have grown beyond the need for conflict, but we have not forgotten how to defend ourselves if necessary." As if to demonstrate his point, Human ships began appearing throughout the galaxy, not invasion fleets but rescue vessels offering to evacuate any being who wanted to leave Council space. The ships were clearly visible but still undetectable by Council sensors. The message was clear. Humans could go anywhere and do anything they chose. Elder statesman Namjoon Kang, grandson of the Admiral Hyunwoo Kang who had overseen humanity's transformation, stood before a classroom on New Terra. The students were a mixture of species, human children learning alongside young Corvins, Stellari, and dozens of other races. "Can anyone tell me why the Galactic Council failed?" he asked the mixed group. A young Corvin raised one of her forearms. "Because they were afraid of change?" Good answer. Anyone else? A human boy spoke up. "Because they thought being different meant being wrong?" Also good. What else? A small crystalline being chimed in with musical tones that the translation system rendered as, "Because they tried to make everyone the same instead of helping everyone be their best selves?" Namjoon smiled at his diverse students. All excellent answers. The council failed because they forgot that strength comes from working together, not from forcing others to obey. They forgot that the universe is big enough for everyone to find their own path. He gestured toward the window, where they could see ships from hundreds of different species moving through the quantum gates that now connected thousands of worlds. You are the first generation to grow. Up in a galaxy where every species is valued for what they bring to the whole, you will explore new galaxies together. You will make discoveries that none of us can imagine. You will build things that will amaze even your parents. As the lesson ended and the young beings ran off to play together, Namjoon reflected on how far they had all come. The humans who had been expelled from the council as troublemakers had become the architects of a new galactic civilization. The species that had been dismissed as inferior had become valued partners in the greatest adventure in galactic history. In the end, the council had been right about one thing. Humans were dangerous. They were dangerous to small thinking, narrow minds, and systems built on fear and control. They were dangerous to anyone who believed that the way things had always been was the way things had to stay. But they were not dangerous to those who embraced change, celebrated diversity, and dared to dream of something better. For those beings, humans had become the greatest gift the galaxy had ever received. The old galactic order was dead. In its place rose something unprecedented, a civilization built on freedom, cooperation, and the radical idea that every intelligent being had something valuable to contribute. The galaxy would never be the same. And that was exactly as it should be.